Out of the 117 billion human beings who have ever walked the face of the Earth, fewer than 100 have been definitively documented with this specific condition. It is a genetic anomaly so profoundly rare that the odds of you having it are mathematically less than 1 in a billion. It is the year 1547. A 10-year-old boy called Pedro is locked inside an iron cage in the dark, damp hull of a ship bound for France. Pedro is not being treated as a passenger. He is being treated as livestock. The sailors refuse to go near him. They slide raw meat through the iron bars using long wooden poles. They don't speak to him because they are convinced he cannot understand them. Because Pedro does not look like a 10-year-old boy. His entire face, his forehead, his cheeks, his nose, and his eyelids is buried under a thick, dark, flowing coat of fur. Only his lips and the whites of his eyes are visible. To the terrified sailors, he looks exactly like a wolf. Pedro was born in the Canary Islands. Almost immediately after his birth, his family and the local villagers panicked. They didn't understand genetics. They only understood folklore. They labeled him a demon, a wild man of the woods, a werewolf. He was hunted, trapped, and sold to pirates as a biological freak of nature. Now he is a living, breathing gift intended for King Henry II of France. When Pedro finally arrives at the royal court in Paris, the guards expect a ferocious beast. They unlock the heavy iron door of his cage, their weapons drawn, waiting for him to lunge. But Pedro doesn't roar. He doesn't attack.
He cowers in the corner. He presents with tachycardia, a rapidly racing heart, and diaphoresis, sweating profusely not from a fever, but from absolute, paralyzing human terror. He cries human tears, and he whispers in perfect Spanish, begging them not to hurt him. The royal physicians are immediately brought in to examine him. They scrub his skin with harsh soaps, assuming the fur is an elaborate hoax glued to a normal child. The hair doesn't budge. They poke and prod his anatomy, checking his vital organs, his teeth, and his bone structure. Their clinical conclusion shocks the king. This is not a werewolf. This is a biologically functioning human child.
Over the next few decades, Pedro is given an aristocratic education. He learns to speak fluent Latin. He wears tailored velvet robes. He learns court etiquette. But the tragedy of Pedro's biology is far from over. The royal court views him as a fascinating pet. Eventually, he is married off to a beautiful woman named Catherine, a real-life forced arrangement that historians believe directly inspired the classic tale of Beauty and the Beast.
When Pedro and Catherine conceive their first child, the royal court waits in breathless, morbid suspense. Will the child be normal, or will it be a monster? The first child is born. Perfect, smooth skin. The second child is born. Smooth skin. But the next 4 children are born covered in the exact same thick, dark fur as their father. The family is not celebrated. They are ruthlessly exploited. Pedro's furry children are taken away from him, gifted as pets to other European nobles, painted in royal portraits as exotic oddities, and paraded in front of gawking aristocrats for the rest of their lives. They were a family imprisoned by their own DNA. But what exactly was happening inside Pedro's cells? Pedro and his children were suffering from a condition known as Congenital Generalized Hypertrichosis, sometimes referred to in medical literature as Ambras Syndrome.
To understand how this happens, we have to look at the human blueprint. Every human fetus grows a fine coat of hair in the womb called lanugo. It's a biological blanket that helps keep the developing fetus warm and protects the skin from amniotic fluid. Usually, around the 8th month of pregnancy, a genetic switch flips. The body sheds this thick lanugo, replacing it with fine, nearly invisible peach fuzz, known as vellus hair. In Pedro's DNA,
that genetic switch was permanently broken. Modern scientists have traced this specific defect to a massive mutation on chromosome 8. Think of your DNA like a massive library of instruction manuals. In a normal person, the manual titled Grow Full Body Fur is locked away in a highly restricted section. You have the manual, but your cells are strictly forbidden from reading it after you are born. In Pedro, a chunk of chromosome 8 was completely rearranged. The padlock on that restricted section was snapped off. His cells kept reading the Grow Fur manual on repeat, forever. As a result, the hair on his face and body never stopped growing. The delicate vellus hair was continuously transformed into thick, deeply pigmented terminal hair. Every square inch of his body was covered in it, except for the palms of his hands, the soles of his feet, and his mucous membranes, where hair follicles physically do not exist. Why does this happen? It is purely a roll of the genetic dice. Congenital hypertrichosis is typically an autosomal dominant trait. This means if you have the mutated gene, you will display the condition, and you have a 50% chance of passing it down to every single child you conceive. This perfectly explains why roughly half of Pedro's children inherited the fur and half did not. Physically, this genetic anomaly is remarkably harmless. The heart beats normally, the lungs expand and contract just fine, the neurological system is completely intact.
In some rare variants, patients might experience a complication called gingival hyperplasia. This is a condition where the gum tissue inside the mouth grows excessively. The gums can swell so aggressively that they completely swallow the teeth, making chewing solid food excruciatingly painful and requiring surgical removal of the tissue. Some patients also present with mild facial asymmetry or a slightly enlarged head. But while the physical complications are mild, the true danger of this disease is societal. For centuries, people with this condition were entirely stripped of their humanity. In the 1800s and 1900s, families with hypertrichosis, like the famous Gomez family from Mexico, were forced into traveling circuses. They were branded as wolf boys or ape women. The psychological toll is devastating. Severe clinical depression, crippling isolation, and severe social anxiety are the true malignant risk factors of hypertrichosis. And while Pedro was born with this condition, there is a much more sinister, acquired version that can strike a completely healthy adult out of nowhere. Imagine a 50-year-old woman, perfectly healthy her whole life, who suddenly starts growing thick, white, silky fur over her entire face and neck in a matter of weeks. She might assume it's just a strange hormonal imbalance or menopause.
But this sudden onset is known in medicine as acquired hypertrichosis lanuginosa. Doctors call it malignant Down. It is a paraneoplastic syndrome. Her body is trying to sound a desperate alarm that a massive, undetected tumor is growing inside her lungs, colon, or breasts. The cancer cells are secreting rogue proteins that hijack her hair follicles, forcing them into overdrive. In the acquired form, the appearance of the fur is often a death sentence, signaling an advanced metastatic cancer.
For the congenital version that Pedro had, diagnosis is completely visual and immediate at birth. A simple genetic blood test confirming the chromosome 8 rearrangement secures the clinical diagnosis. The prognosis for a normal lifespan is excellent, but there is absolutely no cure, and prevention is entirely impossible unless parents use in vitro fertilization to genetically screen their embryos before implantation. So, how do patients survive this today? The treatments are entirely cosmetic and brutally relentless. The ultimate goal is simply hair removal, which becomes a lifelong, daily battle.
In the past, desperate families tried dangerous alternate medicine and toxic workarounds. They rubbed pumice stones on their children's faces until they bled. They applied harsh ammonia or toxic chemical bleaches to strip the hair away, resulting in severe chemical burns and permanent scarring. Today, temporary workarounds include aggressive shaving, waxing,
and modern depilatory creams. But imagine the sheer friction and severe contact dermatitis of applying these harsh methods to your entire face, eyelids, and body every single day. A modern medical alternative is a prescription topical cream called eflornithine. When applied to the skin, it aggressively blocks an enzyme needed for hair growth inside the follicle, essentially starving the hair and slowing down the fur. But the only semi-permanent solutions are intense laser hair removal, or electrolysis, where a doctor inserts a tiny needle into every individual hair follicle and destroys it with an electric current.
Because of this, many modern patients are forced to just live with it. They shave in secret, wear long sleeves in the blistering heat, and endure the agonizing stares, whispers, and smartphone cameras every time they step outside to buy groceries. But the future of medicine holds a legitimate scientific glimmer of hope. With the rapid explosion of CRISPR gene editing technology and RNA interference therapies, researchers are no longer just looking at how to burn off the hair. They are targeting the source code itself. In the coming decades, scientists may develop targeted molecular therapies capable of entering the cell and manually flipping that broken hair growth switch back to the off position, halting the excessive hair production at a genetic level without ever needing a laser. Until that day comes, the legacy of Pedro and the handful of families worldwide who share his DNA serves as a powerful mirror for humanity. They were never monsters. They were never werewolves. They were never beasts. They were perfectly ordinary human beings, trapped inside a 1 in a billion genetic anomaly, waiting for a world blinded by their exterior to finally see them for who they truly are.